Welcome. Today we want to be face to face with conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun. Vedic systems are chasing happening within rays of the sun. Sun, Surya, is accepting 6 as number value, and parallel to it 6 space format and 6 space content manifests as domain fold of hypercube 6, the representative regular body of 6 space. As such, happening within rays of the sun is the happening of the format of hypercube 6, which is having at its origin a seat of a 7 space pole star. Therefore, the phenomenon of happening within rays of the sun is the phenomenon of a flow, transcendental flow from the origin of 6 space from the orb of the sun. Rays, Rashmi, is format for the flow of transcendental, say, light, and these constitute rays of the sun. What is happening within the rays of the sun, as such the happening of the pole star as origin of the sun, that means 7 space playing the role of 6 space is the source for the flow from the origin. 7 space content flows through origin, orb of the sun, and this flow is of the format of Divya Ganga Parvaha. This Parvaha flow of 7 space content from orb of the sun as origin of 6 space amounts to Jyoti manifestation. It is this manifestation which ultimately becomes the format for the chase of the existence phenomenon of rays of the sun. 6 space is a Vishnu Lok. 6 space is of a spatial dimensional order of the creators of space. From the Bindu Sarovar is a flow of 7 streams. These streams manifest as 3 streams towards east and 3 streams towards west. The central stream flows ahead, and this is the flow which takes us to the Sanatana base, the eternity. It is this transcendental base. Therefore, the reach of Divya Ganga Parvaha for 7 space content from orb of the sun manifests as Jyoti along the format of flow through Bindu Sarovar as 7 streams, then split as 3 streams on east and west, central stream, and ultimate reach is at a transcendental base, a 5 space. These are the features of the format. We have to conceptualize them, we have to comprehend them, we have to be face to face with them, and it is with this face to face that we will be in a position to have proper insight and enlightenment of this format of happening within rays of the sun. Let us open a new page and let us begin our chase of this conceptual format in terms of Ganita Sutra 1, Eka Adhikain Purvain. The first letter of this formulation is the sixth vowel, accepting value 6. Parallel to it, there is a 6-space format. This 6-space is leading us to 6-space content. This 6-space content manifests as domain fold of hypercube 6. Therefore, the conceptual format chase mathematically is going to be the chase of the Ganita Sutras, beginning with the first letter, the sixth vowel of value 6 of 6-space format of 6-space content, manifesting as the domain fold of hypercube 6, the representative regular body of 6-space. This mathematics of Ganita Sutras becomes the mathematics of the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun. It is this happening within rays of the sun which is being chased, which is being mathematized, and the mathematics of the Ganita Sutras, the mathematics of Vedic Ganita Sutras or Vedic mathematics as such becomes the mathematics of the conceptual format of happening within the rays of the sun, and it becomes the mathematics of the 6-space. This mathematics of 6-space leads us to the science and technology of 6-space. Therefore, the sadhakas fulfilled with the intensity of urge to be face to face with the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun shall revisit the organization of Ganita Sutra 1, beginning with the first letter. As we have seen, this first letter is ultimately taking us to 6-space representative body, that means hypercube 6. Reach for the conceptual format and mathematics of this conceptual format in terms of the first letter is going to take us to 6-space. 6-space may be conceptualized as a space which is framed by 6 creative dimensions, means 4 space in the role of a dimension. We express it as a symbolic form of these features. Here is a 4 space in the role of a dimension, and there are as many as 6 dimensions. So 6 multiplied by 4 is equal to 24. It is this value which is the TCB value of formulation mantra. Further, we know these mantras are the richas, and the formulation richa is of TC value 8. And further, we know that this value 8 is of formulation ek as well as of triya, and still it is also of the value of the formulation akash. As such, this space framed within 6 creative dimensions becomes the precise geometric domain within a specific dimensional frame, which is leading us to mantras or richas, which will be ultimately the subject of the Samhitas, the Vedic Samhitas, the Vedic scriptures, the Vedic knowledge. Happening within rays of the sun along its format of Jyoti manifestation with its mathematics of Ganita Sutras will be taking us to the organization, and which will be the organization of the mantras, and further we know the formulation Purush as well is of TC value 24. This organization, this mathematics, this science and technology will ultimately become the science and technology, mathematics of the Purushas, the human being, the existence phenomenon. The existence phenomenon within rays of the sun will become the existence phenomenon of the happening within human body. What is happening within human body and what is happening within rays of the sun as such will become a parallel set of phenomena. Therefore, the comprehension and insight about the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun is going to be the conceptual format, insight and enlightenment about the phenomenon within human body parallel to the phenomenon within rays of the sun, and the same becomes the existence phenomenon of our solar universe as a Jyoti manifestation. So it is the manifestation as a Jyoti which is ultimately going to be the base of the conceptual format we are attempting to comprehend. To have a proper glimpse of this conceptual format, we have to glimpse the origin of a six space. We know hypercube 6 is a fourfold manifestation layer with 4 space playing the role of a dimension, 5 space as boundary, 6 space as domain, and 7 space as origin. As such, to have the proper comprehension, to have appropriate enlightenment about the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun, we have to glimpse the origin of a 6 space, means we have to glimpse 7 space. It is this glimpsing of 7 space in the role of an origin of 6 space. It is this glimpsing of 7 space in the role of an origin of a 6 space which is going to be the ultimate glimpse expected from the sadhakas, the students of Vedic mathematics, science and technology. We have to glimpse origin, that means we are having a 6 space as a domain, and we can enter this domain in terms of a creative dimensional frame. That means we can enter 6 space in terms of 4 space in the role of a dimension, and further we know the 4 space itself is accepting 2 space in the role of a dimension of 4 space. So 6 space as a domain, 4 space as dimension, and 2 space as dimension of dimension, or the format steps. We have to enter hypercube 6 by and in terms of 4 space in the role of dimension, which will lead us to 2 space as dimension of dimension, and by this transcendence within 6 space domain, ultimately we will be reaching at the origin. The origin of 6 space means 7 space. To glimpse origin of 6 space would mean to transcend within 6 space domain along its creative dimensional frame, which itself is of a spatial dimension. This exercise of glimpsing the origin of 6 space means the glimpsing of 7 space becomes an exercise to have a sequential comprehension at the initial of a 6 space domain, which will amount to Surya, the sun. Then we have to reach at a creative dimension of 6 space, and in terms of this dimensional frame, creative dimensional frame of 6 dimensions, we will be entering the domain, which at the next step will be taking us to the spatial, quadruple spatial dimensions of the creative dimension itself. Now, this way, at the end, we will be reaching at a origin. This origin in this sequence is going to accept value 0. Therefore, the happening with the rays of the sun is a natural phenomenon which sequentially at the fourth step is leading us to value 0. It is this reach at value 0, and then it in fact is the seat of a 7 space. So origin of 6 space is at its value 0 and has its placement within 6 space domain. Let us sit comfortably and permit the transcending mind to permit and to glimpse that within 6 space we are transcending along the creative dimensional frame, and within the creative dimensional frame we are transcending along the spatial dimensional order of the creator's space itself. Once we will be reaching the spatial dimension, then a step ahead we know that Eurospace is playing a role of dimension of a 2 space, and ultimately we will be reaching at a Eurospace playing the role of the dimension of a 2 space. So it is at fourth step that we are going to the seat of the origin of 6 space. Now it is this reach from 6, 4 and 2 we know as value 12, and this is equal to the TCV value of formulation Rishi. Each mantra, which is ultimately going to be the aim to glimpse and imbibe, is to be in terms of Rishi, who is seer, one who is having a transcendental eye, and by transcending within the domain. Therefore, when we will be having these 3 steps, 6, 4 and 2, then in fact this transcendence within 6 space domain is making the transcendental meditator sadhaka as a rishi. After this we know that we are reaching at the seat of an origin, which is a seat of a 7 space. Here we see that this value 12 together this value 7 will make value 19, and this is the value of the formulation Chand. It is filters. These are the mayas. This transcendence phenomenon within the 6 space domain for glimpsing 7 space, with this glimpse will take us to value Chandas. Simultaneously we know that we are transcending from the spatial order, therefore it will give us a pair of dimensions, pair of flow of value 14. Therefore the total value 6, 4, 2, 7 and 7 will make value 26, which is the TCV value of the formulation Devata. Let us have a pause here. Let us make mention that the transcendence phenomenon within 6 space domain for glimpsing 7 space in the role of an origin is going to provide us sequentially values 12, then value 19 and the value 26. These triple values are the values of the formulations the Rishi, Chand and Devta. Once we are having insight about these triple formulations, and once we know that the origin, because of the flow from the spatial dimension of dimension 2 space, which is having 0 space in the role of a dimension, and 2 space is having a pair of dimensions, and this leads us to the pair of values 0, and with it we know that 7 into 7 as a synthesis in the opposite orientation as -7 and -7 will lead us to value -5, which in the opposite orientation will lead us to value 5. It is here where we have to be very gentle glimpser, insight imbiber of the values, the transcendental values. The transcendence within 6-space domain along the creative dimensional frame of spatial dimensional order will ultimately, sequentially lead us to Sanatana base in 5-space in the role of the base fold. It is this reach of a base at value 5, and we know that 5 as punch is a formulation of value 15, which is equal to the TC value of Swara. One shall have a pause here and take note that every mantra of Samhitas, Vedas, Vedic Samhitas is having distinct Rishi, distinct Devata, distinct Chand and distinct Swaras. Therefore, the organization frame of the Richas, mantras of the Vedas are having fourfold features, means Rishi, Devata, Chand and Swaras. So, while transcending within 6-space domain with an aim to glimpse 7th space in the role of an origin, we are in fact putting our mind in a transcendental state parallel to the organization format of the Richas as mantras of the Vedic Samhitas. Sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to be face to face with the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun shall sit comfortably and view it as a phenomenon parallel to the phenomenon happening within one's own body. It is this happening within one's own body which will intimately bring us face to face with the happening within the rays of the sun, and ultimately it is going to be parallel to the happening of the manifestation of a Jyoti. It is this manifestation of a Jyoti and a reach at the Sanatana base which is going to make us parallel to the Vedas. No doubt the entire range of Vedic Samhitas have not reached us, but the format, the process, the way the sadhakas can glimpse and manifest the same is livelily available with us. Those who are fulfilled with intensity of urge to revive the entire range of Vedic knowledge have to transcend within cavity of their own heart. And it is this transcendence within cavity of heart would means we will be transcending from 6 space to 4 space, which is playing the role of a dimension. So transcendence within cavity of one's heart is the phenomenon which is to be availed as the processing process step. And it is this processing process step which will be taking us to the concept of a transcendental cavity. That means the creators of space, 4 space as such is a setup which is having 5 space in the role of an origin. This seat of a 5 space within 4 space domain is the seat which will be creating a cavity for enveloping has enveloped within the creative boundary of 10 components. A raised to power 5 is to 10 b raised to power 4. It is this transcendental cavity within which the transcendence will bring us face to face with 6 space, which is playing the role of dimension, role of an origin of 5 space. It is this phenomenon that we are having value 6, and then we know that this transcendental cavity with a value of 15 as the transcendental frame solid order of 5 space with 10 creative components leading us to value 15 into 10 is 150. A step ahead, we know that the creative domain 4 space hypercube 4 is enveloped within a solid boundary of 8 components, and it is making us as such the total value at the transcendental domain 10 into 8 is equal to 80. A step ahead, we know 3 space is playing the role of boundary of 4 space, but 3 space itself is enveloped within a spatial boundary, and we know the 2 space is having 5 geometries range, 5 space has 11 geometries range, 11 space has 23 geometries range, and ultimately at the 5th step 47 is the transcendental geometries values of hypercube 24. So this value 6, 150, 80, 47 with a total of 283 is parallel to the total letters of the entire text of all the 16 sutras. Therefore, this value 283 is the value which is parallel to the transcendence within the 6 space for glimpsing of the origin, and it is this glimpsing of origin which is ultimately going to take us to the transcendental cavity. One shall sit comfortably and be parallel to the transcendental meditation and enlightenment preserved in the scriptures of Lord Brahma, transcending within the cavity of his own heart at the seat of a transcendental Lord, and with the grace of the transcendental Lord, Lord Brahma is multiplying tenfold as 10 Brahmas. It is this phenomenon of multiplication of the Brahma as 10 Brahmas. Therefore, a raised to power 5 is equal to 10 b raised to power 4 is the transcendental meditation phenomenon, and it is the phenomenon which is happening not only within the cavity of heart of us, but the same is also happening within rays of the sun. So what is happening within rays of the sun is the happening at the orb of the sun itself. Therefore, this phenomenon of transcendence, transcendental meditation, is the phenomenon which will be having transition and transformation from hypercube 4, the representative regular body of 4 space, to hypercube 5, the representative regular body of a 5 space. It is this enlightenment, it is this mathematical of geometric format process which is happening within the rays of the sun, and it is the enlightenment path, and it is the path, it is the mathematics, it is the science, it is the technology, it is the Vedic system in terms of which we can have a face-to-face insight and enlightenment about the happening within the rays of the sun as well as happening within human beings. With this, we reach at a Sthapatya miring rod. So it becomes the ultimate manifestation feature of the conceptual format for the chase of happening with the rays of the sun as well as within human body. It is the phenomenon of the sun. It is the phenomenon of the rays of the sun, and it is a setup of hypercubes 1 to 6, the representative regular bodies of one space to 6 space. The domain boundary ratio of hypercubes is a raised to power n is to 2n b raised to power n minus 1, which for Sthapatya measuring rod is to be changed as values n is equal to 1 to 6. Therefore, the sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of urge to glimpse, acquire insight, and to attain enlightenment about the conceptual format of happening within the rays of the sun shall be face to face with this organization format features of a Sthapatya measuring rod. A step ahead, as a second step, one shall be face to face with the happening of a domain split spectrum, a domain which is, say, at a single entity, the same at the next step splits into a pair of entities, and the same at step ahead will split into as many as 5 entities, then it is going to be 12, then 29, and at sixth step is going to be 70. It is this chase of a domain split spectrum which deserves to be comprehended well. This deserves to be imbibed. So Sthapatya measuring rod format and the domain split spectrum followed by the dimensional synthesis. It is the phenomenon where the dimension n, when synthesizes with dimension n, then it leads to value n plus 2. And when the third value is added, so when there are triple dimensions, then the value comes to be 6. At the next step, when there are quadruple dimensions, it takes us to value 12 minus 2n. And like that, this synthesis happens. Dimensions synthesize. Dimensions of the same order synthesize. Domain splits into domains, and domains in the role of a dimensions synthesize. So it is this split spectrum and it is this synthesis as dimensions which are the features which deserve to be comprehended well. Once one will be face to face with this dual phenomenon of a domain split and the synthesis of the dimensions, then one will be going a step ahead at the third phenomenon of transcendence within the dimensional frames. Now we know, as initially within 6 space we were transcending through dimensional frame creative dimensions, leading us to again dimension of a dimension. So in case of 1 space, it will be leading us to -1 and -3. In respect of 2, it will be 2 0 minus 2, 3 1 minus 1, 4 2 0, 5 3 1, 6 4 2, 7 5 3. Let us see that these values are leading to value 3, 0, minus 3 and 0. So the quadruple steps will lead to value 0, and step ahead, these 3 steps will lead to value 168. It is the phenomenon, it is the reach, it is the feature which deserves to be comprehended well, as we know that value 168 is the value which is parallel to 8 into 21, and 21 is the value which is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6, which is parallel to the format of a Sthapatya measuring rod. There are as many as 8 such steps, so it will taking us to 8 space with 6 space in the role of a dimension. So setup of 8 dimensions of this feature as such will be constituting a frame, and it is this frame which in fact is a very powerful frame, as 168 is the value of the total primes up till 1000. So total primes up till 1000 as 168 parallel to the dimensional frame of 8 space with 6 space playing the role of dimension is the reach. And then Surya Rashmi. Surya Rashmi itself is a formulation which is of TC value 30 plus 70 is equal to 30, which is equal to 6, 7, 8 and 9. So this Surya Rashmi, the ray of the sun, is to lead us to H8, and this hypercube 8 is to require a dimensional frame of value 168, and it is this value reach which is happening because of a transcendence within the range of 7 dimensions. So 1 to 7 space we know gives us value 28. So the linear dimensions up till 7 will lead to value 84, spatial dimensions will lead to value 56, solar dimensions will take to value 28, and creative dimension will take to value 0. It leads us to a beautiful phenomenon, and it leads us to the value of a second perfect number. So Surya is a formulation value 6. So it is a reach from first perfect number to the second perfect number. Therefore, the format of happening with the rays of the sun is the format of a reach from 6 space to 28, and 28 is the value of a Brahm, eternity. Vedic systems are chasing Brahm, eternity, along the rays of the sun. So the sadhakas fulfilled with the intensity of virtue to be face to face with the eternity shall glimpse the origin of the sun. One shall sit comfortably and permit the transcending mind to transcend within the cavity of one's own heart, where is the seat of a transcendental Lord. And the transcendental Lord, which is a 5-headed Lord, when transcends within the cavity of his heart, it leads us to a 6th space. It is herefrom that we, the sadhakas, are given an enlightenment to glimpse the origin of a 6th space and reach it through a pole star. This is the reach, this is the method, this is the process, this is the attainment, and sadhakas fulfilled with intensity of virtue to be face to face with the conceptual format of happening within rays of the sun. And for it, they can avail, on the one hand, the happening within the human body itself. So one is to transcend within the cavity of one's own heart, and to transcend further within the cavity, transcendental cavity, and ultimately to be parallel to the chase format, which will require the mathematics of a Ganita Sutras. Therefore, Ganita Sutras are the powerful sutras potentialized enough to provide us an eternity of the order of a reach from Surya to Brahm. Thank you very much.